We're very glad to be here, and I'm very glad to be pretending to be an early modernist for a day, or to talk about an early modern text, since a new project that I'm just starting on has to do with medieval Jewish marriage. I hope to write a social history of medieval Jewish marriage in northern France and Germany. And one of the things I've discovered as I've been trying to teach this material over the past 2 years is that there's very little to use if you want to reconstruct the marriage ritual in medieval Ashkenaz. So one of the things I've done as part of my teaching is I've been turning more and more to early modern sources, and I've been trying to work backwards from the early modern sources to try to see if I can tease out hints from the sources that do exist as to the marriage ritual during the medieval period. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to discuss one source, which is by far the most detailed and rich source concerning the early modern marriage ceremony, and I'd like to discuss it in two different perspectives. So what I'd like to do now is introduce our author very briefly, then I'd like to provide a slightly earlier perspective to the medieval period, what exists then, and try to explain what I think is new and early modern about the text in front of us, and in Jewish terms, and then I'd like to discuss this text very briefly in comparison to what's going on in Christian society, where I'll need a lot of help from all the participants here, but the impression I've had so far, and then open the floor for discussion. So that's what I'd like to do now. So the text in front of us is the very long description of the marriage custom written by Rabbi Yuspa Shamash, who lived in Worms during the 17th century. Yuspa, as he was known by everyone, or Rabbi Yiftah, was born in Fulda in 1623, and as part of his studies, he moved to Worms when he was 19 to study with one of the known rabbis in the community. If his personal history can tell us anything, he was married at age 21, and I'm relating here to some of the issues we heard yesterday discussing marriage age. And he married one of the prominent women in the community. He became the synagogue's Shammash. He became the community's Shammash. He was the one who called people to prayer, organized things in the synagogue. He also was a prolific author, or was a well-known author of the community. He wrote the Nisim, which told the history of the Worms community, and he also wrote his very elaborate custom book, his minhagim book, which is a wonderful source for social history and for religious history and custom for the period. And his source was rewritten. The source that we're looking at today was rewritten a number of times, since he edited himself a number of times. So the fullest manuscript on which what you read is based is from the mid-17th century. It was written between 1648 and 1658, but this was amended and added to later on by him in his life, so some of those comments are reflected in the footnotes that you see and in some of the explanations that you have. So that is Rabbi Yuspa, who is the author of our text. And I should also just say at the very outset that this text is prescriptive. In other words, he tells what should be done, not what is actually done. So any hinting to what's actually going on in the community is something we'll have to try to figure out ourselves as we read the text, if we can, or we can at least see what's bothering him or what he's stressing and try to figure out what some of the problems he's dealing with are. And this text is very elaborate in detail. And here I'd like to talk a little bit about what this text has and doesn't have in comparison to what exists before it. So those of you who read through the text and had time to read through all the details must have noticed that this wedding ritual is very elaborate. It takes a very long time. We have here a description of about 30 days, which takes many, many pages. In the printed version, you wouldn't have gotten only 12 single-space pages. You would have gotten more like 60 single-space pages with footnotes and comments, etc. And he goes into minute details concerning what people should be wearing, what people should be eating, what order they should be going into rooms and coming out of rooms, where they should be standing, how much they should be dancing, what time they should be leaving, how they should be doing their hair. I mean, he really goes into the most intimate details.